Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 202.
Yeah, you definitely have to be a person that can take pressure and likes to work under pressure. Not everyone loves to work under pressure. There's people that will clearly tell you, and I've had people that have worked as part of this team, either for me or other Cisco Lives, and said, this isn't for me.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Well, Chris, thanks for coming on the show. How are you, sir?
Good, Matthew. How are you, sir?
I am doing well.
That's good to hear.
So you shared at WLPC 2020 Phoenix about event Wi-Fi. So for those who don't know, you kind of introduce yourself, what you do in the world of Wi-Fi, and why this particular topic is of interest and expertise to you.
All right, Jeff. Thank you first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. So my name is Chris O'Donnell. I've been doing Wi-Fi since 802.11b, so pretty much 99, 2000 is when I really started doing Wi-Fi. I currently work for Cisco, CX organization, so Customer Experience Organization is formerly known as the Advanced Services. So we're the ones that kind of work a lot with the customers. We implement our products, and currently I'm working with a team that focuses mainly on new products. And part of one of the not challenges, but one of the gifts I've been able to do since I've been at Cisco was actually participate as part of their events NOC team.
Okay.
And seeing as I'm wireless, I kind of do, the wireless and help out with the wireless for Cisco Live.
How big is that team for Cisco Live?
Well, the team in whole is probably around, the whole team is probably around 40 members.
Okay.
That's everybody. For wireless, we normally only have like 5 to 6 tops. For everybody on the wireless team, which is the biggest team out of the NOC squad, only because of the fact of being so large, truncated timetables, and we have to divide and conquer. So
if people wanted to follow you or learn more or, read blogs, whatever, how would they get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter at VoFi_CWNE. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on Twitter, but I'm definitely one of those guys I don't chat up as much as I probably should. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Chris O'Donnell. Don't get me confused with the actor. Just look for Chris at Cisco.
Well, you shared trials and tribulations of event Wi-Fi. I figured it'd be kind of fun just to introduce that topic and kind of share what you shared at WLPC for the podcast audience. Does that sound okay?
Sounds perfect.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so trials and tribulations of event Wi-Fi. So obviously I couldn't come up with a better title, but it pretty much that's what it is. So
the true title though, right?
It is a true title. A lot of what goes on behind the scenes. I know for me, I was an attendee to Cisco Networkers for many years and Cisco Live when it transferred into Cisco Live. And I was a person that always was a tech geek. And I always had a real interest of how do they put these shows on? I mean, are they here like for 2 months getting this thing going? There's a lot that they do to put on this for us. So when I joined Cisco, I personally just wanted to attend sessions. I asked my manager, I said, hey, can I attend sessions? And he said, well, better yet, do you want to work on the NOC team? Actually help support the wireless deployment. I said, absolutely. If I can do that, I would love to do that. He said, well, if you do that, it's more keeping the show up and running. You might be able to go to some sessions here and there, but your focus is working the show. So I said, no worries. I think I'll probably get even more experience by doing that. Yeah. And that's has been the case. So I did that upon joining Cisco in 2015. San Diego was my first show, working for Cisco and working for the NOC team. And I kind of fell in love with it, even though it was a pretty grueling schedule. It's normally about 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Of solid work, so working into the night, and all depending on what challenges you have, deployments and deliveries and things of that nature.
Now, you jumped in there, had this opportunity. If someone's interested in event Wi-Fi, is there any recommendation you would give to them? I mean, obviously, there's some takeaways from your story there. Just, look for an opportunity and jump in.
Yeah.
What kind of experiences, I don't know, certs or even maybe personal skills, if someone said, man, they had the same thing that you said, like, this is so intriguing. How do I get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know there's definitely other companies out there that focus on event Wi-Fi. I know at Cisco, the NOC team is mainly made up from Cisco employees. So far as Cisco employees go, if you are a Cisco employee in this podcast, if you have an expertise in something, we're normally always looking for help.
Yeah.
Especially more on the Wi-Fi side. So we have we have a CX centers organization, which is an organization of, for the lack of a better term, they're more junior engineers, but they're really good engineers as well. And they just come for the experience and they want to come and learn. I've had the gift, if you want to call it, to lead these teams up. So, utilizing my experience in Wi-Fi and been doing, been around Cisco networks for quite some time. It's just signing up. It's, reaching out to your manager and asking to volunteer. We even had customers, Matthew, that have kind of taken a sneak peek behind our NOC.
Okay.
Just to see how they do things. There's other big, let's just say department chains out there, for lack of not calling out certain people, that have wanted to say, hey, we do our own events, but we want to see how Cisco does their events. So, yeah, it's just literally getting in touch.
On the soft skills side, obviously this is a high quote unquote stress environment when you're actually in the middle of it, set up and deployment. What are some of those skills that you need? I mean, because you're constantly being asked questions, I'm assuming a lot of times things are always your fault, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What skill level do you need in your pocket just from a human standpoint to be able to jump into this type of environment?
Yeah, you definitely have to be a person that can take pressure and likes to work under pressure. Not everyone loves to work under pressure. There's people that will clearly tell you, and I've had people that have worked as part of this team, either for me or other Cisco Lives, and said, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
It's just too much. Because yes, you are under a lot of pressure. There's normally truncated timelines where we normally, in a perfect world, we have a week to get ready for the show. But there's been instances where we've had certain years where we've had to do it in a couple of days, because guess what?
On the presentation in Phoenix, you're talking about like your keynote stuff came like days past when it was supposed to be there.
Yes. Yeah, literally it came the day before the keynote was supposed to go. So that Sunday afternoon to Sunday night, it came in, and keynote was at 10 a.m. the next morning. So, yeah. So you definitely have to be able to work under pressure. A lot of times you're directing other members of the team. So we do work with a lot of great contractors. So we're not always running and doing our own polls and AP installs. Again, we only have 6 guys to put up 800 to 900 APs in a couple of days. So we're leveraging people. So we got to work with those. We're working with lack of sleep. We're working with other people that have lack of sleep. So it's, trying to be professional, keeping it very much to planning is key. So documenting and planning these things are very key. But yeah, you got to be a certain individual that's able to work under that pressure, work with very little sleep, and know that, hey, man, I would love to go and go back to the hotel right now and take a snooze. But guess what? We have to be on. And it's showtime. So there's this.
Yeah, showtime. Exactly.
We have phases that I always call it the event phases that we go through. And your role has to change in between.
Yeah, walk us through what are the event Wi-Fi phases?
Yeah, so I kind of break it down to 6 phases. So we have, the first phase is our planning, staging, and design phase. So this is something that's done prior to the show.
Okay.
So that we normally start thinking about the next show a year ahead. So like we finished off last year, we were thinking about what we're going to do for this year. As far as we go, so CX helps the event staff, our technology services team inside Cisco. So they contract us to do that work. But we normally don't get plugged in until, maybe 2-3 months prior to, where they say, hey, we're going to start looping you into discussions. We're going to start talking about stuff like that.
How much is is templated and how much is like brand new, clean slate each year? Like what kind of stuff is transferable, repeatable as in your planning, staging, development?
Yes, that's a great question. So a lot of people think this is very much static, and we try to take lessons learned. We try to implement best practices. We try to document everything. Settings from last year, we take backups of everything. We do have design criteria, but normally every year we try to do something new. We're implementing new technology. So whether it be new APs, new controllers, like this year, there was talk around, we've always been deploying on Air OS controllers, and we want to migrate to our iOS XE platform. So that's something that obviously we're not doing it this year with the whole COVID, but maybe next year we might be implementing that 9800 platform. So that's, we're going back to the drawing board, because the AP group, our profile principle is much different. It's now a tag-based solution. And depending on whether we're taking over an infrastructure or if we're putting up a new one, that also highly depends on, how much we can leverage from past. Like if it's a home house install, like, MGM, when we go to Las Vegas, we take over their network. So we kind of know their network. We know what needs to be implemented. Obviously, we're not replacing their APs, but we might putting it on a different controller. We might putting in a different OS completely, where it's a different implementation methodology. So,
and I guess there's a certain amount of, if this is the Cisco show, showcasing what's new in your lineup. If everyone's showing up and then your stuff isn't on the bleeding edge, there's probably a balance there on how much new stuff you implement versus what's tried and true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as much as we'd love to, implement every brand new product that just came out last week, a lot of new product launches happened just before Cisco Live. We also know that, the show network is a critical piece of the show itself. So the network, we are Cisco. We have to make sure that the network is up and running and doing everything it needs to do and satisfying the customer need. Obviously, we have vendors in the world of solutions that rely on the show network. There's a lot of things that, I learned coming into this. It's not just free Wi-Fi for the attendees.
Yeah.
Everything pretty much runs on the show network. Cisco TV, everything is kind of backhauled through our network. So if our network doesn't go up, Cisco TV goes down. It's not a good thing. And obviously, I always kind of figured this as the ultimate CPOC. The CPOC is a customer proof of concept. Normally, we do these things at Cisco campus. We have big labs where we can do a CPOC in for customers to kind of prove out our technology. Cisco Live is publicly doing that. I mean, we are trying to, we're definitely implementing new stuff. We're taking risks, educated risks. But yeah, there's always going to be those times where, we, like 2018, our distribution switch had to be rebooted because of a TCAM, exhaustion on IPv6. And that's something that, right after keynote, right during lunchtime, the whole network goes down, all of wireless, everything. Wow. So that's a good example of, we found something out. And guess what? We have a customer, and customers actually, we all were really, thinking that it would be a bad thing. Like we get bad press, and there's a lot of people that are on Twitter that are like, oh, Cisco's network is down, But you know what? We got a lot of good feedback from our customer to say, this is great, Cisco, because you guys know what I go through every day as a network engineer, network architect. It's not perfect. And it's good to see that you guys are pushing the technology here and finding these limitations or finding, software defects or something like that we can fix before we put it into a critical infrastructure, even more critical, like a energy company or, like we're seeing in healthcare, things of that nature. That's where we don't want failures to happen, is at our customer site.
Yeah, with the time pressure of the event coming, whether you are ready or not, you can only do so much testing and staging beforehand before you just have to say, this is good enough. What's that balance for you as a key person, a key player, a key leader in the NOC team?
Yeah, so like I said, we definitely stage as much as we can stage, knowing that we're not going to have time and things happen, deliveries come late. Every show I've done, there's always been some challenge. Something leaking, deliveries being late, 2018, and when we were in Orlando, I think we hit the trifecta of everything. That was a tough one. But yeah, we definitely try to stage as much as we can in the lab. So that way when we get on site, the controllers mostly got the configuration. I've laid in a lot of baseline configuration from an RF standpoint, RF profiling and channel setups. Like, again, we take lessons learned from previous shows. We know the venues now. I know I've made my whole trip around from Vegas to Orlando back to San Diego. So I've kind of been through all of them, knowing that, okay, I know this facility, what's going to change, how we're going to implement new technology. And then when we get on site, you're absolutely right. There's going to be things on site that you have to tackle, the tuning, the validation, migration, setup and testing, migration are, phase 2 and phase 3. After phase 1, we're on site. And that's making sure that, hey, the racks come from, California, we put them in wherever they're going and they fire up and everything's good. Everything fires up. There's no issues. We validation check everything to make sure interfaces are up. We test, and we test. And then from a migration standpoint, then we're starting to take this network and migrating into the house network. Because no matter what, even if we have all these poles, if you've ever been to a Cisco Live, that's been all poles, there's still house APs that are being used. There's house infrastructure that we're tying into sometimes, most times. So it's definitely not a complete greenfield segmented network. We are interfacing and migrating, and it varies on depending what venue we go to. And every venue, we're trying to get that house up to par, so that way we don't have to bring all these poles for people to, see and trip over potentially. We're trying to move away from that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Those are part of the stuff that we have to do on site, and it does take some testing and validation and time to do all of those type of things. And like I talked about in my presentation in Phoenix, we can't validate all of the square feet. When we go to Vegas, we're taking over Bellagio, we're taking over the Cosmopolitan, we're taking over MGM Convention Center and Mandalay Bay Convention Center. That's a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
We can't site survey Ekahau, that whole area. It's just not possible.
And you're setting up into environments that aren't your own, obviously. And so you've got kind of like this temporary world.
Yep.
What's that like when you're kind of setting stuff on top of stuff and trying to tie in? I mean, I imagine cabling and all of that stuff when it's not your own personal real estate. How do you deal with that kind of mess or chaos and trying to tie in and keep everything nice still?
Yeah, there's definitely some of the photos I shown at Phoenix. So for anyone that's on this podcast, I would definitely go check out the session, WLAN Pros. I got some good pictures of some of the fiber set up. A lot of it's behind the scenes, so our customers don't see that. But for the most part, we're definitely working with fiber issues, dirty fiber. Some of the cabling is pretty old. I've kind of seen it all. And it's funny that we even do back to back. When we're in Vegas, we do our Cisco Live show, and then normally a month or two later, we're doing our large sales not a convention, but sales meeting, sales conference.
Yeah.
For Cisco. So fiber that we just used a month and a half ago is now bad when we go there 2 months later. It's like, how does this happen? It's just challenges of people plugging things, unplugging things, working in a temporary environment. Cables get, they get their workout. APs get a workout. I've had a couple of APs during my tenure working here where the actual Ethernet interface on the AP pins get worn out. PoE is not really working, or we're not able to get CapWAP up because of that. It's weird things, and it's just because of the way they're packed. Just unplugging, plugging. It's constant wear and tear. Where normally at a customer site, you plug it in, you leave it for 3 to 5 years, and you replace it. So not with this.
It's the life cycle of like an AP for you guys.
Oh, that's a great question. I honestly don't even really know. We don't have to really deal with that. The events team deals with that. But there's always a telltale sign of, hey, this antenna is not behaving the way it should behave. We're very, again, our CX engineers are very well skilled RF guys. They work around this type of equipment all the time, so they can suspect, hey, this is, I think it's seen its life. I think the connectors it just got banged around too many times during transit.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more aggressive, Matthew, than a regular enterprise for sure. Because of the nature of all of this equipment is not just used for Cisco Live, it's used for every show.
Yeah.
Cisco does. So there's multiple shows. There's like 6 to 8 to 10 shows throughout the year that we do. This equipment gets transferred all over to those shows. So it's not just a once a year, this is Cisco Live's equipment. And we were even donating some of our equipment for temporary hospitals. So as you've seen for the COVID response, we had customers saying, hey, you guys got all this stuff for Cisco Live, and obviously you're not using it because you got to do virtual this year. Are we able to use that? We've been able to say, we can lend some of this stuff out. So, but yes, there's definitely more turnover, probably every year or 2 years tops we're looking at. And of course, we're implementing new product. Again, that works for us. When we say, hey, we're going to switch out 11AC Wave 2 APs for 11AX Wi-Fi 6 APs. So it's kind of a natural thing too, from that point of view.
So you get in, migrated in. You mentioned in the presentation that you are a data guy. You don't just like the wet finger in the air. So tuning, validation, phase 4, what does that look like for you? What are some of the surprises, some of the things that you learned that maybe you didn't expect, through these different experiences?
Yeah. So when we really get down to tuning, after everything is online, we account for all of the APs. We have our inventory. We definitely, this is where we divide and conquer. So we have, senior members of the team. There's a couple, normally 2 or 3 more senior guys on the wireless team. Everyone's got a role. So either someone's working at a hotel, normally I segment, or there's a senior engineer that's taking care of Bellagio, there's one taking care of MGM, and one taking care of Mandalay. Give you an example for Vegas. That's what we'll be next year, hopefully. So people are dedicated to that location. Then the other engineers that we had, like I told you about, some of our CX centers engineers, the great engineers, hard workers, these guys are out there sampling data. So they're taking sample points of areas like hallways, large ballrooms, medium ballrooms, small areas. The world of solutions has got, dedicated focus because its own beast. And then Keynote. Keynote is big. So I normally have been taking on Keynote again because I'm kind of overseeing everything as the lead engineer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep all the balls in the air. And also I'm the guy who's interfacing with a lot of the business people, the project management inside of the Cisco Live team. So I'm the ones giving updates and stuff like that. So a lot of my engineers, my senior engineers are kind of taking on their roles to make sure their areas are up to par as well. And I just, because I'm a geek, I'm a Wi-Fi guy. I love to, play in Keynote. Keynote is one of those areas that gets a lot of visibility. So there's a lot of focus. I normally take, a good day just to spend time in there after things are installed. Obviously, a lot of it's set up and planned and designed, and keynotes always change. Every year, it seems like there's never 2 keynotes. Since I've been doing this, there's never 2 keynotes that are almost the same outside of the Mandalay Bay Convention Center because of the static nature of we're using the house APs there. But even next year, that might change. Yeah, so that keynote area is definitely something that we take a lot of focus on. All areas, as far as tuning go, we do obviously do some site surveying. We can't do a whole area, but we're getting samples to make sure our RF settings are correct. So transmit power is set correct. Our data rates are not too aggressive. There's always a balance of being aggressive, trying to eke out as much performance as possible and not going overboard where we're starting to affect client, connectivity. So to go along with that, we're definitely checking we're doing a lot more tests for cell edges. We're doing some protocol testing. I'm a big proponent of, graphing out protocol and seeing how frames are transmitted between the AP and the client and making sure that roaming, and if I move from this section to this section, so if I come into the entranceway, move to section 205, I should be associating to 205's AP, right? These are things I test to make sure that when people start ingressing into Keynote, and we always kind of see like there's 2 areas, one side of the arena gets the influx of everybody. So those APs always get a hard hit because everyone kind of associates there first and then they distribute out. So
yeah, you had made an interesting point in the presentation about that being, maybe something that might have been overlooked, but that's where everyone's congregating and then it fires up big time at that bottleneck there.
Yeah. Everyone's waiting outside. And then all of a sudden they all come into the arena. And then, when people are coming into the arena, they're Facebook Living, they're streaming. They got all this going on just because it's a show, right? Every time we do a keynote, there's a show that kind of goes along with it, So we have this, I look at it from a data standpoint. I show some of this on the slides, but you see this influx and this huge peak of probe requests, for wireless folks. We just get probed to death of everyone coming in trying to find the network. I mean, it's just nature of 802.11. So I call it the turbulence phase. When I first did my keynote, where I was, looking over the shoulder of the engineer I was learning from, I said, "Wow, that's not good." And he's like, "It is what it is. It's like this in stadiums. When everyone's coming in, there's going to be some turbulence. The difference is when you come to a stadium, you're normally looking for your beer stand, right? You're looking to grab your beer and get your seat. No, you're at a tech Uber conference. Everyone wants to show off, and a lot of people are testing the Wi-Fi, quote unquote. Yeah. So you'd be surprised, Matthew, that there's a lot of wireless geeks out there that, along with this, so imagine having this probe storm of you know, 20,000 devices coming into an area, and then everyone wants to do a speedtest.net. So it's like adding insult to injury.
What do you think the percentage is of people that are of that group at any of these live events that are just trying to disrupt as much as possible?
I would say not intentionally disrupt, but, quote unquote test. There's definitely maybe a 10% of hardcore people that are really looking at the performance of the network. Believe it or not, contrary to what I thought it would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of people trying to do ill harm. So like actually trying to jam the spectrum or things like that. And we're always looking for that, right? So, this stuff we keep an eye on. But for the most part, it's just wireless geeks being wireless geeks. And they just want to know, like, oh my God, they can only envision being a wireless engineer, what's going on right now, right?
Yeah.
I would love to be behind the helm of whoever's running this show and seeing what's going on. And that's where we have this tool, this matrix tool, that allows us to graph out our KPIs. And we can stack up, channelization versus the noise floor versus the probe rate versus client connectivity, et cetera. Like we can stack all these KPIs, and it's just interesting to see. I call it the ski slope that happens where everyone's climbing up when we get the client counts up, and then things settle down. And believe it or not, we have engineers that are amongst the crowd. We have people that are like our moles that are communicating to us, and they're telling us that, speed test is not awesome right now. And that's just the nature of the beast. And, I try to explain to people, we have these knock panel sessions, which this is kind of derived from, is people at these knock panel sessions said, man, you should go to WLPC and talk more about this, because I love to hear more detail about all the stuff you guys experience. Because normally I only get like 7 minutes to 10 minutes to talk. So, it's definitely
feedback from your KPI tools. Obviously people are talking, and I don't know if you're watching like Twitter feed or you got someone like assigned just to that. And then you also mentioned you're doing sensors as well.
Yeah, so that brings us right to phase 5 is monitoring. We're monitoring everything. We have, this custom tool. We have sensors out there doing synthetic testing. So I know in Keynote last year, we had about 3-4 sensors deployed at different parts of Keynote. And it did synthetic testing, make sure the DNS was working. The ACP server, was responding. We were doing a little bit of speed tests just to make sure there's no anomalies happening. But we're proactively testing the show before big events happen. So, keynotes and large audience, the keynote area also gets reused for other type of big, gatherings for, different executives at Cisco who talk to our customers and partners and things of that nature. So, we were constantly making sure that the critical areas, we can't put a sensor everywhere in the deployment. I know last year we had probably 38 total sensors throughout all of San Diego's deployment. We're pretty much focused on, where executives are meeting. Our Whisper Suites is where a lot of meetings are happening with executives and customers, making sure those strategic areas are not being impacted and that things are working well. And then on top of that, utilizing Cisco Prime Infrastructure and Cisco DNA Center, which has been a huge, huge thing. As you mentioned, Twitter, up until 2018 in Orlando, we've really, been scouring Twitter, and Twitter was kind of our client test. Is our clients happy? Because Twitter, people will be on Twitter saying, oh, the Wi-Fi is awesome, or the Wi-Fi is not doing so well over in this area. And we actually use some of that to say, hey, let's go check out World of Solutions near CDW and see what's going on. See if there is valid problems going on, having connectivity issues.
Since you had mentioned too, just, it's its own beast.
Yeah.
And you had talked about policing as part of this. What does that look like for you guys to actually go out and say, hey, you're blasting too much, or what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So that World of Solutions, I call it the wild, wild west of WAS. It's definitely an area where I just don't work for Cisco's events team. I actually work with some other customers' events teams as well. This is a problem across any interop, any type of big conference where you have vendors coming into a space. Everyone wants to bring their own network. They have proof of concepts, demos they want to do. So, and just the nature of Wi-Fi being a shared medium, it's a challenge always. The only place that we really have been able to crack down on this.
You mentioned the way you crack down on this.
Yeah. So in World of Solutions, we definitely have to police it just because of the nature of, everything that's going on. I think I mentioned Mobile World Congress is one area where they've actually got Yeah, we call it the Wi-Fi police, where they actually wear vests. They go around and you have to sign an agreement, and they really, really crack down on it. I know we're not there yet at Cisco Live, but we do a really good job. And believe it or not, a lot of the vendors will work with us. They will change channels. They want their stuff to work as well, and we want their stuff to work. So it's just, dedicating time. Again, I have the staff, if I'm lucky, of 6 guys. I have to dedicate some of this time. As you can see, there's a lot going on. But then we have to go through WAS and make sure that, are people using 80 megahertz channels? Refrain from that. It's not allowed. You have to use 20 megahertz channels. I normally carve out channels in my DC channel plan to say you can use these because I'm not using them. You guys can use them and use them amongst yourselves. And we help we help our vendors to say, hey, you guys, you got Google next door to you and AT&T's here. And guess what? You guys are both trying to use channel 40. Let's not do that, right? Let's, why don't you go to 48 and you go to 40 and help coordinate some of that, because maybe they don't have a wireless guy that has, a Wi-Fi Explorer or a NetScout AirCheck. They go and be able to look at these channels and say, here, what's the best channel for me from what I have to choose from that, the events team has given me. So yeah, and then 2.4 gigahertz is we've kind of went away from it. As of last year, we're not even turning on 2.4 SSIDs in WAS just because of, with 1.6.11 in that environment with all of the vendors, it just doesn't work.
So monitoring phase 5, it brings you to the glorious phase 6.
Yeah, so phase 6 is Teardown. So again, everyone, the setup is a lot more to get this up and running. It's easy to tear it down. It's literally just shutting down the equipment and unplugging interfaces. And a lot of it, God bless the team that has to go out physically and pick up equipment. I know when we have poles and we have, these little CG switches or compact switches that are being deployed out in the areas of the venue, they have to go pick all that up. They have to go and manage all the cable and things of that nature. So when we do our house, what we call our house events, where we're taking over house infrastructure, that's a lot better just because we have to worry about our core racks and things of that nature. But we kind of avoid having to deal with touching all the APs, and we just have to just gracefully migrate the APs back over to their controllers, and they verify that everything is good on their side, and away it goes. We try to do that. Even phase 3 in migration, we're taking into consideration all of these things. So we know that we're borrowing and we have to give back. And we try to be a good borrower of equipment. And I know the worst case is, if I take 800 of your APs and put them into my own AP groups and things of that nature, and I send them back to you, they're going to all go in your default AP group. And you're not going to like me because now, potentially you have to remap all of your APs to your AP group. So one of the things I do in that, phase 1 to phase 3 is making sure that I'm taking their AP groups, I'm getting config snippets from them, and I'm duplicating their AP groups, and I'm just using my RF profiles, which are not specific to the AP itself. They're more to the AP group. And then that's how we kind of transition back and forth.
Well, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of wrap up the conversation with what do you think is transferable from what you've learned? Because this is, obviously a unique situation. And in the world of Wi-Fi events, not everyone's doing this type of scale. What have you learned from this as a Wi-Fi engineer that you think is transferable to other, more typical or just different WLAN applications?
Yeah, that's great. I think, I call this extreme high density. I just like making up new terms. We have very high density, we have high density, ultra high density.
2020.
Yeah, it's extreme high density. The only reason why it's extreme is because it's done in a pressure cooker. It's done in a short period of time. I don't have a lot of time to plan out the network. I don't have a lot of time to figure things out. I can't, as much as I love to nitty gritty, fine tune everything. So it's helped me as an engineer to be more efficient. Definitely, scripting things out. I have a great guy on my team, Tim Barnes. We call him Python Tim. I'm continuing to try to learn Python, but Tim's been our guy for helping us with getting some Python code and getting scripting. Scripting's been key. I know we're looking to do more stuff with automation. I know last year we used Cisco DNA Center for automation. And personally, from a certification standpoint, going into my CCIE, I had a CWNE. I got that back in 2008. But as I moved to Cisco and pursued my CCIE wireless, going into that, after doing these events, I did not feel the same. I personally think I didn't feel the same amount of pressure that most people do going into it. Because again, a CCIE lab is kind of like being involved in a NOC. So if you're a person that is training for your CCIE, being part of the NOC team, I always try to find guys, hey, are you going for your CCIE lab soon? Second attempt potentially. This is a place to be because you're going to have to do things and you're going to have to be very efficient. You're going to have to do things under pressure and, you're going to deal with challenges. You're going to deal with problems and you have to try to mitigate those problems fast. And that's, pretty much what the CCIE lab's all about is, testing the best to making sure you can do things in an uncomfortable fashion because a lot of times CCIEs are being deployed out to customers that, their networks are going down. It's affecting large geographical areas and things of that nature. So, or a whole stadium or a hospital. I've worked a lot in hospitals and having that pressure of, it's life or death. If the Wi-Fi goes down, it's not like, oh, darn, I lost my free Wi-Fi. It's no, patients potentially could die. So that, especially healthcare Wi-Fi is definitely, I give my hats off to anybody that works inside healthcare and does, what they have to do for IT, especially these days to keep that up and running.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure the audience does as well. It's fascinating and just a lot of fun discussion. Thank you for spending the time with us.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts or anything to add?
No, I think I'm looking forward to the future. I mean, obviously, the new 6 gigahertz band is very, very much appealing to me, and something like this application with event Wi-Fi. Just Wi-Fi 6 in general. I'm looking forward to deploying more Wi-Fi 6 because I feel like a lot of the features and functionality of some of this new technology is just going to, help us in this high density type of configuration. So I'm very much looking forward to the future. I'm actually really bummed out that a lot of our shows are canceled this year physically. And we're a technology that, Wi-Fi is physical. So you had to be on site to do Wi-Fi. And there was actually a little joke inside internal in Cisco. They said, hey, you guys could actually go to some of the people's, houses and stuff and set up their Wi-Fi so they can attend Cisco Live Virtual. And I'm like, that'd be kind of an undertaking. But nonetheless, we're looking forward to getting back into it. I know I miss it. I love doing it. I love the team I work with. And I look forward to seeing everyone. And feel free to come up to the NOC. There's NOC tours that we do every day. There's 1 hour tours, and feel free to come up and say hello.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris, so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.